Hello friends, in this video I'm going to show you the smooth animation that you can see it on the screen, how a source marker is moving to the destination marker pretty smoothly. You have commented me many times about it, and I have brought this video for you guys where the smooth animation and smooth transition I'm going to show you in this particular video. So if you like this, hit the like button now. Do let me know in the comment section you are liking this particular smooth transitions. So with this, let's get started. So as you can see here, I've created a new project and it is up and running using the command Ionic serve. So I've changed the title here along with the things which were already present in the HTML. Also, I've removed the SCSS from the homepage SCSS file. After doing that, the next thing is to integrate our Google Maps. For doing that, what am I going to do? I have already included a variable called Google Maps API key into my environments in both the cases. Now I'm going to pass my API key here and going to integrate it into a service. Let's create a service for that. For that, I'm going to open up another terminal here and pass Ionic G service. Let me create a services folder where I'm going to create another folder called Google Maps, within which I'm going to keep my Google Maps service in this particular way. Now this is created, pretty much structured. Now in this service, what am I going to do? I'm going to create a function. So this will be my function load Google Maps, which is going to return a promise. Since it is of type promise, in order to resolve the problem, I need to return a promise here in this particular way. This is how we create a promise. Alright. So the promise is created. Now the error is gone. So we are going to integrate the JavaScript Google Map here, for which I'm going to use windows.google. In this case, if we have the Google Maps, then I'm simply going to pass it in the resolve directly. Otherwise, we are going to go for it and create a script dynamically, which is going to load our Google Map. Now, these things I've shown you in many videos, so I'm just going to go for it quickly. This is how I'm going to integrate it. I'm going to create a script at first, then include the source where I'm calling the HTTP link for the Google Maps API. Alright, let me import the environment from this particular one. Alright, once that is done, I think it's okay. We will have the Google Maps API key, and then what I need to do, I need to call this particular callback init Google Map. That's what I have passed here. After this step, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to create this particular variable init Google Map, which I told you about, which will have a callback. So basically it's going to be a function itself. So in which I'm just going to check here if the Google Map module is available or not here. If it is available, I'm simply going to return it. Otherwise, I'm going to give a response that Google SDK is not available. So this will be the error that will be thrown. After doing that, you can simply remove it from the callback to clean it up, because we don't need it anymore. And finally, append everything within the body. Okay, so this is how we are creating a dynamic script. After this is done, our function is completely ready. Now what we need to do is we need to create a component for our map, because I want to keep everything separately so that we can call and use it whenever we want. So in order to create a component, Ionic G component C is the short form. Then I'm going to pass it within my home folder itself. So home/map. That's how I'm going to create it. So it is created. Let's check it out. Within the home, I have a map component here. Within the map component, what exactly I'm going to pass? I'm going to create a div which is going to have a class called map. Along with that, I'm also going to pass an identifier in this particular way so that we can use it in our TypeScript. Now for the map class, I'm going to make it visible on a certain condition. That is why I'm just going to pass this particular styling to it, where I'm just putting the opacity of the map class to be 0, and only if the visible class is called, then only I'm going to pass the opacity as 1. Otherwise, I'm not going to do that. And it's going to be pretty smooth because I've given a transition here. Okay. Apart from that, I've given a height width of 100% and a position to be absolute. So after doing that, I think our map will show up, but not directly. We have to work on it. How do we work on it? So in my TypeScript file of the map component, I'm going to pass certain properties here. First of all, the view child for accessing our map element, which is actually the div that we have passed into our HTML. So this is what I'm going to use it, and I'm going to update it, means I'm going to import it. And I've passed a not symbol or the exclamation symbol because I'm saying to it that it won't be null, but I'm not going to initialize it right now. That is what I'm telling. Otherwise, I'm going to get an error if I just remove it. Okay, that's why we need to give it. After that, I've created a property called Google Maps. Then for the source and destination, because we are going to draw a line and then move our marker as you have already seen. So all these things needs to be done in this particular way. Then for the source and destination marker, I have created a property. We are going to have that. Two more properties I need. One is intersection observer and the other one is the advanced marker element. This will be used to actually pass some transition to our marker on a conditional basis. So let's check that out. Once we implement that up, you will come to know how exactly we have done that. Now I'm going to call the inject function private maps equals to inject function, where I'm going to call my Google Maps service. Let me create a function called load map, or you can give any name you want, where I'm going to do everything within async await try catch, as we are going to get a promise from our service, right? So I'm going to put everything within the try catch block. If there is any error, I'm going to log the error for the time being and make it async to call my function from the Google Maps service, which is going to be the load Google Maps function. I'm using await here and passing it into a variable called Google Maps. And then initializing my global variable called Google Maps, because if I want to use it anywhere else in any other function within the same class, I can do that with the help of this particular variable. Now I need to work with the div part to show my map, and for that I'm going to start off by getting my map element and then getting the map out of my Google Maps library, which will call the maps library, and then I'm going to call the advanced marker element, because this is a new way to pass a marker within the Google Maps. And for that, import library called marker. That's what I have done here, because there will be many things. I am just calling the advanced marker element from there. Now after doing that, I'm going to initialize my variable advanced marker element to this particular variable and then logging the value. If you want to check what the value is, you can simply check it in this particular way. Then I'm going to create the map using the new map function, which is actually coming from here, okay, and passing my map element and some features like where it will be centered up and what will be the default UI. Means whatever the settings that we can apply on the map, we will do that up, like zooming 13, and any map ID you can just give it here. You can just give any string as you like. Now after doing that, I'm going to keep this variable within a global variable called, actually it's a constant, not a variable. So this constant, I'm going to keep it in a global property or variable called map. This is how I have done that. And after that, I'll get my markers for the source and destination. This is how I'm going to create it. These are available in my assets folder. So if I just check it here in the assets, IMGS folder, I have these two images. Okay. So once that is done, what is the next step? Let's check it out. Well, the next step will be to prepare our marker for the source and destination. So this is how I'm going to create the marker position, where I'm going to pass the latitude and longitude, okay, and prepare the position for both of them. But for the time being, we have not created any marker functionality. So let's first check it out whether our map is showing up or not. For doing that, at first I'm going to call it in my home page directly in the Ion content. Let me do that. So I'll directly call app map. Okay, now if I hover on it, this is not getting imported. If it is not getting imported, you simply pass it here, map component, okay, and it is showing an error. What is the error? So the error is coming up because in the component, I have not passed standalone to be true. So I have to pass to make it a standalone, then the error will go away. And if you need any imports, you can simply pass it here. Fine, now the error is gone. Now still we don't see any output here. For doing that, for looking at the output, well, actually I need to pass the functionality somewhere, right? So what am I going to do? I'm not going to pass it in ng on any lifecycle, because it's better after the view is initiated, then I'll call it. So it can be done in ng after view init. This is the one. Let me just pass it here, this functionality, and see what happens after passing it up. So even after passing this functionality into our ng after view init, we still don't see anything. Can you guess why? Well, I'll give you a hint. In the map SCSS, we have passed something called opacity 0 by default, and it will be only visible if we call this particular class. In order to make that happen, what am I going to do now is, after everything is initiated, we get everything. Finally, I'm going to call to functionality. I'll center the map to the source position, and then I'll call my renderer functionality to add this particular class. Now, how to get this particular functionality, let me just show you up. Well, I'm going to create a constant here called renderer, which will be equals to inject renderer2. Once I do that up, I can directly call it here. But actually this is not working properly, so I think I need to call it globally. It should work in some cases or the other. That is why this inject function comes into play, very handy. But anyways, since it is not working here for the time being, let me just pass it here and make it a private. Now we see the map. That's great. So the map is loaded. Now it's time to work with the marker and to draw the route also. Let's work on that. In order to pass the marker, let me create a function called add marker. And let me make it a sync because I'm going to use the promise functionality here too. And everything will be done within the try catch block. So I'm going to accept the location here, which will be of type any, let's say. And I will have an image URL because I'll call it for source and destination. So they are going to pass their own marker like image, right? That's what we have passed. So I'm going to do everything within the try catch. Like I said, this is prepared. Now in the try block, at first I'm going to work with the marker icon, which will be created as an image. And I'm going to pass the image URL here, which we have already prepared, right? This will be the one which will be passed. And then I will set the height and width of it. Finally, getting my advanced marker element, which we have already passed into a global variable, right? And then preparing my marker in this particular way where I'm just calling the map and then positioning up to the location which is being passed for this particular marker, and then passing the content which will be our icon in this case. Okay. If there is any error, I'm simply going to throw that error. But this is not over yet. After creating the marker, we have to work on something else too in order to make it work. And that will be nothing else just to return this particular marker and you are good to go. But if you want some transition, if you want some animation on the marker like the drop animation or something, how you can work with that? Let me just show you. It's pretty simple actually. Now for doing that, I need to play around with the marker content. So this is the content which we are going to change. Okay. On which I'm just going to pass the opacity to be 0 initially, and as soon as the animation ends, the drop animation, then only I'm going to make the opacity to be 1. And it will be observed by this particular intersection observer, which I'm just going to pass in my ing after view init. Also for this transition or the drop animation, I'm going to set the keyframes also. Let me do that in global.scss file. So global.scss file, this I have already passed. Let me just uncomment it so that I can show you directly what exactly I have done. So I've added the keyframes into my CSS for 0%, 5%, 10%, 75%, 100%. And this will be my class which will be called the drop class where I'm passing the animation. Okay. So this is how I prepared the animation. Once that is done, let me get back to the map component, and in the map component in the ng after view init, I need to do something. I'll be using the intersection observer to observe my intersection observer entries. For each entry, it is going to check whether the is intersecting is true or not. If it is true, then it's going to add the drop class and unobserve it. Since we are unobserving it here, so we don't need to like unsubscribe or do anything with this particular observer. So we are good to go ahead, and now I'm going to simply add some markers. Let's go for our load map functionality only after passing all this. Let me add some marker here itself. So I'm going to add 2 markers. One is for the source, other one is for the destination here. You can see one icon is showing up, and if I just change the zooming, then I can see both the icons, because in the center we have given the source icon, right? That is why it is showing in that particular way. And this constant, if you don't pass it also, still it's going to work. Just for the reference, I did that. You can simply remove it in this particular way and you're good to go ahead. Now let me change the value here because I want it to be little nearer. So if I change that up, now they are quite nearer to each other. In fact, you can increase a bit more. So instead of 2 km radius, let me give 5 km radius. That would be better. Now it is quite at some distance, which should be great. So let me just keep it in this particular way. We have added the marker, great, it's working, and we see the drop animation also working properly, right? After that is done, what next we need to work on? Well, we need to work on to draw the route between the 2 icons or the 2 positions. So in order to do that, let me just do it after adding the markers here. I'll get my direction service and directions display. Okay, this is how we get that. You can just check the documentation of JavaScript, Google Maps. You will be able to understand what exactly I'm trying to do. But this is what the direction service we need in order to work with the direction part, okay? And this direction display is necessary to show the proper line. That is why we are using all of this. Now I need to use this direction display to show my line in this particular way. These are the options that I've set, not directly, it's not going to show it, but this will be the things which I have passed. For the polyline options, I have given a stroke of 4, opacity of 1 and the color of black. You can change the color as per your requirement. So these are the options which I have passed to this particular display. After doing that, I will call my functionality to draw the route here itself. But for that, we need to have some functionality actually available. For the time being, we haven't created one. Let me create one called draw route in this particular way. Now within this function, I'm going to call my DirectionsService.route functionality to create a route. Now within this, we have certain options. First of all, we get the option of passing the origin, destination, travel mode and provided route alternatives. If you want the alternatives to be passed, definitely you can pass this option too. Okay, what kind of traveling mode you want, you can simply select it. After doing that, it's going to give you the response and status. These two things you are going to get in return. All right. Okay, one extra braces has come up. Let me just remove it. Now, simply I'm going to check here. If the status is okay, then I'm going to display my set directions. So whatever the direction is going to show up, I'm going to display that in a line. Means whatever the line is from the source to the destination, it's going to draw it up. So if I want to check it, I can simply do one thing. I can pass this functionality here, this dot draw route function, but I'm going to call await here because it's not going to return anything. Await, I'm calling it because I don't want to show the map until unless this is called. That is why. Now we can see the line is drawn from here, from the source to the destination, which is great. But there are certain things which we need to take care of. What are those? Well, I need to move this particular source marker to the destination smoothly. I want to show you that part. In order to do that, I need to move it within this particular line itself, for which I'm going to take the steps which are being passed here. Okay, each and every step I'm going to put it in an array and then loop it up to move this particular marker from its position to the destination smoothly. Okay, I'm going to show you that part now. Now for doing that, I'll go to the function draw route, and what I'll do is within this particular condition, I will be working on something else too. And in the else condition, you can simply log the value. Also, what am I going to do? I'm just going to stop this functionality because I have given some criteria. I will call this functionality only when needed because it is attached to my Google Maps billing. So I've set a certain limit. Otherwise, it's not going to work for the day. I don't want it to exceed. That is why. Let me keep it in this particular way, and I'm just going to pass the whole functionality at first. Then I'm going to show you up. Okay, so I pass the status and then some more functionality I'm going to pass to count the steps and pass it in an array. So this is how you can get the route, and from the route you can take each and every steps and then create a variable called position. Now I'm just going to loop it up to get each path and pass it in the positions array, the latitude and longitude. So once we get that, we are going to work around with that to move our marker. And this function will be called to animate our marker along with the route, where I'm passing the positions. Now this function will be pretty interesting because within this function, I'm going to pass the animation part where I'm just taking index to be 0 initially. For the 0th index, we are going to start off. Then total position will be the length. Okay, fine. Step count, I have given 20 step counts, not more than that. So I fixed it that it will move to 20 steps. And position per segment, you can get that with the help of math.floor by dividing total positions by step count. And then the interval I've given 500 milliseconds because I want it to be pretty smooth. I don't want it to stop for a certain time period. That is, I've given 500 milliseconds will be good. So let me change it to not 2 seconds. Earlier I gave it to 2 seconds. 500 ms will be fine. Then I have created a variable which will hold a callback. That means it is going to be a functionality which will be created, which is going to check certain things for the next position and change the marker accordingly. Okay, so this function I'm going to call for changing the marker position, which I'm just going to show you right now, and incrementing the index to move the marker to the next position. This is how we are incrementing the index. Okay, and then scheduling it up to call our request animate frame. So this request animation frame is actually a function which will return a number that is of type frame request callback. So this is the default function which are available within the JavaScript, so we can directly use it up. And finally, we need to call this particular function to change our destination and marker position. So once it reaches to the destination position, I am simply going to pass the position of the destination for our marker, that is the source marker. So this functionality is very much important. Let me call this functionality change marker position, and within this marker position function, change marker position function, I'm going to pass the new position, which will be the latitude and longitude. Let me give of type data of type any. Now after getting the new position, I'm going to call animate marker because I want to pass some animation for smooth transition from one position to another. That is what I'm going to use it here. So earlier we used this particular animate marker along route to basically move it towards the route, right, along the same line. But now we are going to navigate it smoothly towards it. You're going to see how smooth it is. So let's work on it and see how exactly it performs. So animate marker, where I'm going to get the marker and the position as the arguments. I'm going to animate it for 2 seconds mostly. So I'm going to get my Google Maps. This is how, because we have passed it into our global variable. That is why I can call it anywhere I want. Now I need to get my old position with new position. So this is the whole thing which I'm going to do. Old position I'm going to get at first, then the duration I'm going to pass, frame rate, how much it should be, then finding the total frames. So how you can find the number of frames? Well, you have to divide the duration divide by number of milliseconds per step divide by the frame rate. That's how you can get the number of frames, and then delta latitude, which is a new position lat minus old position. That's how you get the difference, divide by frames. And similarly in this case also, once you get all of it, well, simply you need to pass the animation. This is how you can pass the animation. If you find it complicated, you can simply skip it because you just need to pass it and it's going to work. So the only thing that you need to remember is to pass the duration properly and the number of milliseconds for each step. That is most important. Okay. So here it is checking the condition. If the frame is less than the number of frames that are available, then it will get the latitude and longitude and pass it into the marker position and increase the frame by 1. Then again, it's going to call the request animation frame function, which we have already seen earlier. Otherwise, what it's going to do, it's going to update the position to the new position, all right, and pass it into the source marker. So this is how the animation is going to work. After that, you'll finally call this particular function and you're good to go. So I think everything is prepared. It's time to try it. For trying it up, I need to call the draw route functionality once again, which I have just commented. So let me just call it and see whether it works or not. I'll just uncomment it and see whether it works or not. It is not moving because we are actually getting an error where it is saying that the position is undefined in map.component, this particular line, where I'm passing the marker.position in the animate marker function. Why is that so? Let me just check it out. I must have made some mistake. Animate marker function. Let's check it out. This is the one where I'm passing the marker, which actually I'm taking it from the source marker. But have I defined anywhere the source marker? Let me just check it out. I've just passed it here and I don't think I have used it anywhere directly. I don't think so. I have passed the location of it. So what I exactly need to do is, let me just show you. When we are adding the marker, let me just pass something here. Is source of false. That means whether it is a source marker or not. Let me just comment it for the time being. So if it is source, let me give equal because it is not type false. That will be type boolean. So if it is source, then what am I going to do? I am going to update the value here. So if is source, then this dot source marker will be equals to the marker value that we are going to get within this. That's what I'm going to do. And how exactly I'm going to determine it, because this will be the source, and let me pass true here. All right. This is how I'm going to make sure that this is being passed in a proper location. I don't want it to pass for the destination. That is why I'm doing it in this particular way. Or you can simply initialize it here. So instead of doing this long process, I think that would be better. I've commented it and let me just remove it. Why to complicate things, right? When I'm getting the value directly, this dot source marker equals to this particular value. That's it. Now let's check it out whether it works or not. I will just uncomment it and see. Let's check it out. So I've uncommented it and it's drawn and it's moving. Great. It's quite smooth, right? Look at the transition. It's pretty smooth actually. And finally, it has reached its destination and stopped. That's how the smooth and cool animations that we have tried in our Google Maps with the markers. So I'm sure you like this particular video. Make sure you hit the like button to subscribe to the channel and look at our all other content that are free of cost and that will help you to understand Ionic and even Angular in a much better way. Also, there are many content on other technologies too. Do visit our channel and check that out. Thank you so much for watching.